Yes. Jeff, is the microphone on?
It looks like it's on.
No, here.
Oh, there we go. Good evening. I'm Major Argyris, commander of the 51st Brigade Coordination Team, U.S. Volunteers. As you guys may know from a previous city council meeting, we have developed a partnership with the Sandwich Emergency Management Agency in which we have mutual aid training, mutual aid assistance for activities such as natural disasters. We helped out with the Freedom Day parade there as well. And so just as to signify our partnership, we're authorized to present you guys with a certificate of appreciation. I have 3 copies here, one for the police, one for fire, EMA, and the mayor's office or the city council as a whole. So just a little token of our appreciation. And in case if there's any disasters or any emergencies tonight, we are ready to go. We got our OCPs ready to help you guys out tonight, so.
Thank you. Do you want to come up front and we'll do those individually?
Sure.
Chief, you want to come around and get your police officers? Who's next? Tony? Does city council like to join all of us? This is a city recognition, correct?
Yes.
It's okay. We'll let you do it. It's okay.
Just let us do it?
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you. On behalf of the city, thank you very much for this recognition. It's much appreciated.
You guys have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, item 6 is the city clerk report. Clerk E.
No report this evening.
Okay, item 7 is the treasurer's report. Treasurer Kohler.
Nothing tonight.
Okay, item 8, city administrator report. Jeff Penman.
I'm going to hold my comments to the next meeting.
Okay. City department reports. EMA, Tony Eberly, director.
I would just like to thank the U.S. Reserves for the partnership that they've had with us and look forward to continuing that partnership and other activities. Thank you.
All right, Chief Seti.
Okay, starting off with our events and community engagement. So we had National Night Out, we had our Explorer meetings, we played bingo, we went coffee before business, back to school bash, attended 2 car shows, assisted with the VFW motorcycle escort, moving the park, the end of summer celebration we attended to. On National Night, it was a great success. I want to give a special thanks to Sergeant Whitecotton for organizing it, Mary Brandt and Winnie Flowers for the behind-the-scenes work, Sergeant Fosnot, Eisenberg, Detective Rominski, Officer Bright, and Officer Hagelin, and the Explorers for their contributions to the event, because without them, it would not have gone as well. The Explorers, I mentioned, they had competed, they had a competition they were competing in. They did compete in that competition. They did well overall with placing 4th in several events. As a result of that event, Officer Hagelin is exploring the idea of potentially hosting a competition here in Sandwich sometime in 2026. Just talking about the school, so the first day of school went smoothly. I just want to talk about the parking issues that continue on Prairie View School on Pleasant. Just want to remind the community that we are monitoring that, and for the parents, it is a no parking area, which also would include just not stopping there and letting your kids out because you are putting your car in park. Just want to make sure that they're following the school's drop-off pickup plan. It works well and ensures the safety of the children, which should be a top priority of everybody that lives in that area, drives in that area, and children attend that school. Some staffing and recognition. Our lateral officer is scheduled to take his polygraph test this week, and as I spoke about the last council meeting, should everything continue to go well, he will be on track to be hired sometime in mid-September. Officer Hanson, who's actually out in the audience tonight, he is doing very well in his FTO program, and he is possibly going to be released to solo patrol or shadow phase during the first week of September, and then by mid-September, he'll be on his own. And then I just want to recognize Officer French, who was selected to receive a MAD award, which is the Mothers Against Drunk Driving, on the 6th of September for his outstanding DUI enforcement, which he did last year. The fair, which is just around the corner, working with Tony to finalize the fair plans. Tony will be meeting with the county on the 28th of August to finalize what will be going on there. Us as a police department, we will still again do the walkthroughs and have the same process that we did last year. The new desktop computers for the police departments have been ordered, and they'll actually should be arriving by the end of this month. I talked to AID today. Just a little update on the squad car purchase. We're waiting for Ford to complete their credit check and finalize of the vehicles. I submitted the monthly report. I'm just going to touch base on that really quick and note the training that the officers did during the month. We've received some additional training in our MCTs. We have the newest program running by the county. Officer Bright attended his high-risk traffic stop, and then I just want to note on there that 3 officers, being Sergeant Meisner, Officer Dwyer, and Officer Lundstein, attended a 3-day class, which was called Desert Snow Training. That has to deal with a lot of training dealing with traffic stops in cars for hidden compartments, looking for narcotics and that type of stuff for that. Community engagement, again, great month for community engagement. You got the significant incidents down there. Just wanted to point out that we did assist Downers Grove with the search warrant. Had nothing to do with our town, had to do with theirs. The follow-ups for the month, you notice that fraud is on there. I spoke with Detective Verminski today. We are starting to see a lot of crypto frauds. Just a reminder that police do not call you on that type of stuff and ask for, say that you have a warrant, you need to pay them in crypto. That's one of the biggest ones that's going on for the community. Some other information, we had 15 FOIA requests for the month. Just want to point out again, 79% of our monthly call volume was proactive, and for the year, we're at 82% of the call volume is proactive. And since we talked about DUIs, I just want to point out that DUI arrests this year to date, we are at 22. Last year, we were at 16 at this time, and in 2023, we were at 6. So our DUI enforcement is doing well. Officer Lundstein has been doing a phenomenal job on the midnight shift of getting DUIs for that. And then also, I just wanted to point out that 4 DUI arrests have occurred during the daytime hours this year. Officer French actually has 3 of those with a big assist on number 4. So we're still being very proactive in that. Then attached to the report is our activity report, the adjudication report. The zone map, calls for service by the week, our community dashboard for July, and the community dashboard for the year. When I look over the when I look at all of the stats for the month, there's nothing that is glaring to me. We are staying where we need to be. Our traffic enforcement, again, is one of our top priorities, and we're out there doing that. Just want to let council know that at the next council meeting, I'm not going to be at, because I'm going to be attending the DeKalb County Board meeting for our grant, and I may need to attend the following council meeting for the ratification of that grant. And then reminder of our community website dashboard, lots of great information on there. And then, as I always like to close, I want to thank the officers for the excellent work that they continue to do for our community on a day in and day out basis.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate the great work. Questions by council for Chief Senni? Okay, thank you, Chief. Engineer tonight is Steve Dennison from EEI. Steve will just give us a quick report, and we have a couple other topics you might want to weigh in on. You can sit there if you like on the other position. That's where Kurt sits.
There we go. For those who don't know me, I'm Steve Dennison with EEI. I'm a vice president there. I take care of all the water and wastewater projects for EEI, manage that division. Wanted to give you a quick update on the wastewater plant. Been really involved in that project. It is nearly complete. It is effectively complete except for one lagging item. There was some damage to the digesters, one of the digester tanks and the piping in the tanks that was deemed to be pre-existing condition failure due to the existing piping there, just degrading over time. So that piping needs to be replaced. It has been on order for several months now. It is due to be received by the contractor in early September, and they will subsequently be doing that work to replace the piping in the tank. So we are anticipating by the end of September that the work at the wastewater plant will be done. There's a couple other very minor punch list items that we're working with the general contractor to finish up. So imminently, the project will be finalized out, but it is effectively being used right now by staff. Any questions? There will be a change order. I think it's come up before, but it's because this digester work was deemed to be due to existing conditions in the tank and not due to work that the contractor did on the project. It will be a change order. It has to be done. We're gonna treat it as a time and materials in order to be as fair as possible to the city. The contractor had originally suggested a particular price, which I thought was a little high. So we came back and said, we'll pay you time and materials and keep track of that on site in order to try to keep those costs down.
Okay, anything
All right.
else? We'll probably come back to you when we get to the 50/50 setback program and the lead lines. All right. Council reports, Alderman Chan?
Yeah, I just have a few things from Nick. The spray patching is about 75% done. They'll be done by next week, and they're got more done than what they thought they were going to. Next month starts citywide tree trimmings and removals. And then we got some issues over at the, where the salt is being stored over there. So no more changing the siding on it. Now we got a wall that is actually bowing out. I saw it today with my own eyes and it's not pretty. So we're gonna have to look into that and see what we can't do there. That's all I got.
Okay, thank you. Alderwoman Erickson?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Alderwoman Inman?
Nothing at this time.
Alderman Ketchum?
Nothing at the moment.
Alderman Cranbrink?
Nothing this evening, sir. Thank you.
Alderman Robinson?
Nothing right now. Thank you.
Okay, old business. You had what we believe is the final draft of the travel expenses, specifically the meal reimbursement and the new rates. That was on page 10 of 25 in the city's personnel policy. Are there any questions or need to discuss that particular proposal? If not, it'll come up at the next meeting for a vote. Okay. Lead lines, discussion on lead line service line replacement as relates to the North Main Street project. I'll turn that over to Jeff and to Steve Dennison to give us an update on that project.
Okay, as the work has begun on Main Street, we have found some additional lead service lines in some of the homes that we hadn't anticipated. We had been told that there were 6 or 7, and right now we're sitting at about 20. We've got 25 others that are unknown at this point. So our issue is that to begin with the project, our plan was with 6 or 7, we would just try and cover the homeowner side and get those done. At this point, the contractor is moving on the project, and we're hoping to, I know they're hoping to try to begin work on the water mains next week. So we're kind of pushed into a corner because once those are disturbed, if you'll remember, the city is going to be replacing from the water main to the B box, and then the B box to the home is typically on the homeowner's side. For the 6 we were planning to do all of those. Now that we're at 20, I think we probably still need to do them because we don't really have notice or time to be able to give anybody any notice as to what needs to get done is the biggest thing. This has been a surprise to staff, unfortunately. And sometimes this happens. If you recall, we did go through the process of sending out a survey to all the homeowners. We got some back, some we didn't. Some we found weren't filled out correctly. And, you know, we did also do some potholing, and some of that appears to have been helpful, but some of it, you know, we found a couple places where within so many feet of the B box, it was copper, but then someone at some point in time had attached it to a lead line. So unfortunately, it's been kind of hit and miss, and we've caught a few of these, and I think, Steve, you could probably speak to it better than I can.
So to supplement what Jeff is saying, I think it helps to understand the status of the law and what is currently required. This is something that communities, not just in Illinois, but around the nation, are having to deal with now. Illinois has been particularly hit hard with this because there is the disproportionate amount of lead services in Illinois compared to other states. You can look that up with all the metrics, but for many different reasons, there ended up being a lot more lead service lines in Illinois, particularly in the city of Chicago, but also as you work your way into the suburbs. So there's a lot of communities that are dealing with this right now. This was stimulated several years ago, Flint, Michigan, obviously, you know about that. That kind of kickstarted things with looking at more closely at lead service lines. Since then, Illinois has enacted the Lead Service Line Notification Act, and that requires communities to start diagnosing, inventorying their services, which the city has been doing over the last several years. That was the reason why the resident surveys went out, if you remember those. There was a concerted effort at that time to try to use the residents, those who would be cooperative, to self-identify the service lines, take pictures of them in particular, so that they could be verified, ask city staff to come over and verify if they were not sure, because that's all part of the process. The best information we could get for the service line material was gonna help the city plan as effectively as possible. So that was step one. It was moderately effective. I think there was several notifications that were sent out. Felt like got as many responses as possible through that program, which, by the way, was completely funded 100% through a grant through the IEPA Lead Service Line Inventory Grant Program. Their Round 3 Notice of Funding Opportunity programs. That was $40,000 that was utilized for that. The city didn't have to spend a dime for that. There was a second grant, another $40,000 grant that was used for potholing. So $80,000 total in grant money, but that second $40,000 was used for potholing. Brian at the time contracted and had somebody come out and pick locations around the city. Obviously, with the expense of potholing and the amount of funding available, weren't going to be able to do every address. But we're able to hit representative areas around town to get an idea. That information was used to update the inventory that annually that's been submitted to the IEPA. Unfortunately, previously, there was only a confirmed 70 to 80 lead service lines, and there wasn't a clear identification or understanding that remaining service lines that were unidentified could still potentially be lead, and I think that's where the hangup has been most recently, where as they are uncovering things on Main Street, as they're digging into records and other investigations over the last month or so, their current staff is identifying a lot more potential lead service lines throughout the city, certainly on Main Street, and by extension, they believe, in surrounding areas as well. It's going to be homes that were built a little bit older. Obviously, lead was banned fully in 1986. There was at some point in history where the city would not have allowed lead service lines. I don't know what that date is, but they're going to be able to hone in on those neighborhoods and those homes that potentially have lead services. So that investigation is ongoing, right? In the meantime, have to figure out what to do with the lead service lines that have been identified very recently on Main Street that were not known previously. Unfortunately, because this project is moving forward with the water main replacement, that includes the disturbance of the existing lead service lines, and the city is responsible for the public side from Main to B-Box. The law says you cannot do a partial lead service line replacement. You have to replace the entire service line, even if it's on the private side that is made of lead. Now, it says you have to do that. It doesn't say who has to pay for it, but it does have to be replaced. So if there's a lead service line on the private side and lead on the public side, the entire thing has to be replaced. If there's a galvanized pipe on the private side and it's lead on the public side, that's galvanized requiring replacement. That's a galvanized pipe that's downstream of a lead pipe. The concern there is that they have shown that lead particulate can accumulate in that galvanized pipe and be released through construction activity. So they want to see that entire service line replaced. And that's what's happening a lot in the city is you may actually only have a lead gooseneck. So that's the connection at the water main that goes up, and then there's a straight pipe, and that may not actually be lead, but a lot of times it is. But the gooseneck has to be either lead or copper. It can't be galvanized. Galvanized is rigid. But a lot of times with the older houses, it is a lead gooseneck. And then if there's a galvanized pipe downstream, there's a lot of galvanized between the B-box and inside the home. That all gets categorized as galvanized requiring replacement. It will have to be replaced. So back to Main Street. If you're replacing the public side and there's a private side that has to be replaced as part of this, that also has to be replaced if it's lead or galvanized downstream of lead, then you'll have to figure out how that's going to be done. It has to be done within a very short period of time after the public side replacement is done. It's within 60 or 90 days, somewhere in that range. But it has to be done in short order. So that's where you currently stand, where there's still an ongoing evaluation of exactly the number of services that you're looking at here. But I've been told on the private side on this project, it's gonna be 20 plus, maybe 20 to 30. So the question is, how does the city want to deal with these, knowing that they have to be replaced and knowing that they have to be replaced quickly if you want to keep the contractor on schedule with the Main Street water main replacement project?
Okay, so some of the discussions we had last week, we had a staff meeting, was how could this have been, right? So some people maybe misidentified the line of their house. They just simply marked something and returned it. They may not have even marked it at all. So my understanding is that some of these lines we've only identified once we opened up the street or parkway or did other projects, then we could see the entire line, and we found that there were some omissions from our original record keeping. When we did the potholing wasn't all done on every service of Main Street. It was done in different parts across the community to figure out where lines might be based upon historical records that we had, just to identify if there was something else that popped up in different parts of the community. So it's unfortunate. I think before us tonight is decide how we want to handle these other lines. We do know that when we delayed some things on Latham Street, it cost us more money. And if we do finish the Main Street project and then we leave up the homeowners to come back, will they be disturbing the parkway that we simply just finished and seeded, and to open it back up to restore that service to the Buffalo Box? So I believe we originally looked at 6 lines. We allocated $80,000 in our budget. I think maybe coming back, we look for another 70 or 80,000. We think that might cover the project. I can't guarantee that, but I think that's what's before us, and I just see how we want to handle this project. So, comments or thoughts from council now that you've heard this information?
If there's lines that the city has the good pipe, but the homeowner has the lead, we're not required to replace, correct?
That is correct. Now, there is a stipulation that if you disturb the lead service line in any way, it should be replaced. Now, there's a lot of gray area in what constitutes disturbance. If you're replacing the water main and replacing the private side as part of this project, up to the B-box and including the B-box and connecting the lead service back up to it, that it gets into a gray area. And honestly, I would have to see clarification from the IEPA on that one.
Okay.
I'm not sure how many I'm not sure if we have any of those cases on Main Street.
Well, as part of the project, we're replacing all of the main, all of the lines
Public.
from the main on the public side, yes.
Correct.
To the B-box.
Right. But if you're replacing, if there's any portion of the public side that is lead, then the downstream side has to be replaced as well. That's a non-starter. It's only if it's all copper from main to B-box would be the question. And if you're replacing that and replacing the B-box, reconnecting to the lead line on the private, would you be allowed to do that? I believe you probably could, but I will have to get clarification from the IEPA if that is a condition that exists on this project.
Because I would think that we're not on the hook for the private. Well, we don't have to be on the hook because we can make them pay. But what I'm saying is that we wouldn't have to even look at replacing that lead line if we didn't have lead on the public side, correct?
That is my understanding currently, yes.
Because we're gonna wanna make sure that we know that 100%. I don't know who we have representing the city as this work is going on-site engineer, whatever the case is, but I think that it would be in the city's best interest to know that, because one, like I said, we're not gonna necessarily be on the hook for that. But if I'm understanding correctly, if we have any lead on the city side, then, and they have lead on their private, we can't just do it up to the B-box. We have to do the entire line all the way to the house.
You can do it at different times.
But it's a
But it still
short
has
period-
to be done, yes.
But it's a short period of time.
Correct. That is correct. Within a
So-
couple of months, yeah.
So obviously it would make more sense if it's being done to follow it all the way through, but are we then having to get permission from the homeowners to get that done
We're
too?
required to notify them.
You are required to notify them. There's a handful of notifications that have to be done as part of this process, and we'll be working with staff to make sure those get done. There is making sure that they flush their plumbing out properly. There is one thing that we are strongly recommending, that I would even say is a requirement, air quotes, is getting a temporary construction easement. You need to get a temporary construction easement executed with the homeowner, because it is potentially a contractor hired by the city doing work on private property, and you need the homeowner to sign off on that. So we've provided examples to city staff of various communities that have TCEs already, and so that is a process that will need to be gone through as well.
So basically what we need to figure out then is how we're gonna have it paid for. Because if the city ends up paying for it up front, then we have to get reimbursed for it unless somebody thinks that we should be paying for it. But I don't think we should be paying for every single service that's a lead service for the residents in town. I mean, I don't know how we can afford it.
I estimated if it's 400 lines, it's at least $2.8 million.
Again, we can't afford it, period.
Right, so I think there's two pieces of this, right? Because this is a project we're doing, is this the exception to complete the project on time, do this work, so we don't go back and disturb it, and keep the project on time with the anticipation maybe being done by November, which is the current date. If not, they have to close the street and open it back up in the spring. Or do we not, and then we go through the notification process and they're remedied later if we're not required to. Ultimately, we'll have to decide, which is part of our discussion tonight, is who pays for this and when and how.
Yeah,
We have to decide that fairly quickly because we did not anticipate this and we only found it when we got into the street project and opened the street up. Yes, Fred?
and I think that underneath the old business, B is specifically talking about Main Street, and C is talking about future, and I think that's where we have to create that differentiation here between these two projects. So, I see this as similar as being with the digester, right? It's like a change order, it was a change in the scope, where originally we were having 6 to 7 services, and now we have a lot more. I'm a little disappointed that we're at this point, given that we had engineering consultants working with us as well as our internal staff, and we did potholing all over the town. I would have thought we would have hit all of Main Street, but there's people that are far more intelligent with this than I am to come to that consensus, so.
Well, apparently not. We just found at least
Well-
14 to 30 more.
It's concerning to me. I mean, The only thing that I'm afraid of, and I think some of the other council members are, is that you're kind of setting a precedence here that we're doing it for one and not for all. Given that this is a specific project, I think that we made that decision early on that this specific project was going to be dealt with in this manner. It's just concerning that now it's almost tripled in the quantity from the original.
Yeah, and I think the other part of that too is if we come back 21 more times to fix these and remedy them, that's
Right.
21 more times our staff has to be involved in the process too. I mean, I certainly understand what you're saying. And this is very different than what we had anticipated. And I do agree, it needs to be differentiated. This is a street project, and like you said, this is a change we did not anticipate. It is not indicative of going forward, what our process would be. The other part of that is we inquired about another grant so that we could pothole the entire East Pleasant Street and hopefully the entire part of West Center Street. So when we got to those future projects, we would not be surprised like this, and we'd already have a program in place that was different than what we may be considering this evening.
Yeah, I mean, the other side of that is we own a Vector. We could do this all ourselves. We could put a program together and go do 10 services a week until we have them all knocked out.
I'm not disagreeing with you, I'm just saying
And
for
then
the
take that.
current
So,
project.
I mean, as
There's
much
not
as this
enough city
bothers.
employees to do that. They can't even keep up with what they got now.
In this,
Even-
in this
yeah.
particular case, it would be another $40,000 of grant money we could apply
No,
for that.
I understand that, but when you're looking at $300,000 additional that we don't have, we have the money to go find out if that's there by paying our people. Even if it's overtime, it's still cheaper, to know where we stand.
All right, let's send
I
the water
would-
department out to do that because they got one employee.
So I would
Right.
be,
They can do that?
sorry, what was that?
The water department can go do that, right? Because they got one employee?
This streets department helps out with a lot of that stuff.
Exactly, but they have their own projects they gotta get done too.
And you're going down somewhere that we don't need to go right now, because I'm with you
Yeah.
on that one too. I think where we need to make a decision here tonight. As much as it pains me, this is a specific project. I think we have to just move forward with doing these and setting it that this is the footprint of the paying for the lead services, and then we have to come up with a plan of attack for the next ones. And I remember there were grant dollars that were afforded, but if we even charged the customer or residents, there's a potential that we would not get a grant dollar. Is that right? Or is there partial with that? 'Cause there's been two different stories.
That would be, that's only for replacing the lead service lines. And even that, the IEPA is kind of backtracking a little bit on statements that they had verbally made previously on that, where it seems like there's a potential that if you're using SRF money, the IEPA low-interest loan program money, if you're using that for lead service line replacements, you could still potentially have the homeowner pay for the private side replacement, and you would only use those funds for the public side replacement. So there is an avenue there, although I will say that a great majority of the time, to almost every time that I'm aware of, if you're getting that money, you're using it for the full service line replacement.
Okay, but that's for that low-interest loan, not
That is
necessarily
not the grant
not a
process,
grant,
that's
okay.
completely separate, it's only for the replacement.
Two separate
Correct.
revenue streams, okay.
Correct.
In our case, we haven't been successful with the forgiveness because of our per capita.
But we're looking into that for the lead. It's the same program through the IEPA, but it's a separate bucket of money with slightly different rules. So they look at it in relation to census tracts. And if you have a census tract that qualifies you for principal forgiveness, then you could potentially get there. And we're looking into that for the city to see if you might qualify for principal forgiveness for lead service line replacements. This is, it's kind of sidetracking, but kind of gets into the overall discussion about how you're going to pay for this moving forward. A lot of communities are trying to use the IEPA loan program for this because their base, if you don't get principal forgiveness, the loan term is 0% for 30-year repayment, which is still obviously very good. If you get principal forgiveness, in the last couple of years, it's been somewhere between $2–3 million that a census tract is given for replacements. If you're able to get that, that's going to go a long way. So we have to do some evaluation, obviously understand better where you have lead services, understand what census tracts they are, how that all fits together. But as you know, going through, a lot of you already know, going through these other programs, through the IEPA, you have to submit a project plan, you have to get it approved, you have to wait, you have to get ranked on your project, and wait for it to potentially get funded or not. And so sometimes there's a bit of waiting around. The other caveat to this, and we're bleeding over into the next topic, but just something to keep in mind, starting in 2027 is when you will have to start replacing lead services by law. So you will have to start doing, as of right now, it's going to be replacing over 17 years. However, by the time 2027 hits, unless something happens, the lead service line, the updated Lead Service Line Act is going to be in effect, and that's going to require replacement of all your lead services within 10 years. So that is something that's on the horizon here within the next couple of years. You will have to start replacing services, and you have to replace the services every year. You can't just wait and then catch up after a couple of years. There's a certain amount that you have to do every year. So just something to keep in the back of your minds.
So B is, how do we solve the current situation? C is, how do we design a program that keeps in mind our residents, the cost, a split, a financing process, or desire to try to go after additional loan money? Now we have to start the program relatively next year. Okay, so what is, I've heard from Fred and I've heard from Rich. Anybody else have comments?
I have one more comment to say about it, and again,
Okay,
you'd.
Can I see if anybody else does first?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, anybody else have a comment?
I just didn't know, what does our ordinance say? I mean, are we not supposed to pay for repairs? Is this considered a repair?
Our ordinances say that we are only responsible for the public portion and that homeowners are responsible from the B-box and then anything into their house. So that is what our ordinances say.
No, this is not typical what we had, right? This is a government unfunded mandate, could be funded. So you might want to look at that a little differently as you look at the code, but that is what the code states. B-box to private service, homeowner responsibility. Sewer, water. Rich?
I did have a question. So with the, is it still available to have the customer pay through the quarterly water bill?
Well, that'd be one option, Jay, under item C, like we decide, you know, do they pay for it all? Is there some split with the city? Sorry, just tell me what the alert says. Or is there some way that we can let them pay that over time in their water bill? So I think that's what item C is, some options that we would give our citizens.
Okay, because I know there's just a lot of people out there that wouldn't be, that don't
Yeah,
have
$7,500,
$6,000, $7,000, $10,000 just sitting around with nothing better to do, so.
So either we would let
That's
them
my
pay that back
concern.
without interest, or we'd come up with some type of repayment program. But we'd also have to figure out how that goes on our billing and what happens if they don't pay that. And is there a process too that we do for those that do the waiver, right? So that's the other option is what happens if someone does the waiver. Some of the things we thought about is one of the other communities charges those individuals more for their sewer and water. Is that Carpentersville, Steve?
Yeah, correct. There's a whole other set of circumstances, and maybe that's worthy of going in for the next topic after the Main Street, because I think it's completely separate. But I do want to circle back to that. That's if homeowners refuse to let somebody in their house or to have their private side service replaced, what do you do? And I think that's a policy decision that will have to be made.
So that is something we have to consider under the next item C, but they do kind of have to think about those together. Rich?
So going back to the waiver, if they sign a waiver and say that they don't, basically they are refusing or whatever, then we just have to keep track that they have it. We're not required to do it. We only do our part.
Correct.
Till then. And then at that point in time, we keep track. And then are there requirements for us then, or is it a requirement for the homeowner? For example, they're gonna sell their house. Is it a requirement prior to them doing it or anything, or is it just a matter of us keeping track of it?
You file it with the IDPH,
Okay,
But there is no requirement, as far as I'm aware, of disclosing it upon home sale. They're talking about that, but they haven't decided that that is actually required currently.
okay. Then my other question is, you said that the state quit allowing lead in what year? 1986?
Federally, 1986.
Federally, 1986. So,
Any home built after 1986 will not have a lead service line.
okay, so I think that's important to think about too, because we've got a lot of subdivisions that came after 1986. And I guarantee you that those residents are not gonna wanna be paying tax dollars on the older homes prior to 86. It's not gonna be all the homes, but it's gonna be some. So I would think that the full boat cost is gonna be them, whether we're getting reimbursed for it. And we're told that we tell them up front that's exactly how we're gonna do it. I understand there's a timing thing. We can address Main Street right now and then figure out the rest of it later. But we need to start with how we're gonna expect to do it with the rest of the city. And a lot of these homes on Main Street, probably almost all of them, were built prior to 1986. So I would recommend that we somehow let them know that they are going to be charged the whole thing. And we're either gonna do it through a water bill or whatever, lien, however you wanna call it, whatever the best, most logical, legal way is to do it. And if they aren't interested in doing that, then they sign a waiver. And they know that signing the waiver, they're not in the hook for it now. They're gonna have to do it at some point. But again, that's not our concern. It's the Illinois Department of Public Health, right?
That is correct. Then I should have just taken your cue before and kind of got into this, because there's another major caveat with that it does make the city's concern. And that's if you have one lead service line left in your community, you have to submit plans. There's a level of effort that you have to do every year to submit plans to the IEPA. In addition to that, there's sampling that you have to do from any home that has lead service lines left, that if the concentrations of lead come back at higher, then it could kick you into a more regimented program where you have to add more corrosion control, do corrosion control study, et cetera. So it is in your best interest to try to get all the lead service lines out because long-term, short and long-term, it is going to reduce the level of effort and the risk that the city has to maintaining their program and to maintaining compliance with the IEPA.
So my concern, Rich, is they use this against us down the road, right? Program comes out, we're looking for funding, we decide we want to apply, and they say, well, you can't because you don't have all your lead lines mitigated.
This is why Carpentersville enacted the ordinance that they did, and I sent that along to the city as well, staff. They enacted an ordinance that gave an additional charge to to residents who had lead service lines left, who were not allowing the village to replace their side of the lead service lines, and charging them extra to basically say, okay, this is what it costs us as a community because you're not replacing your lead service line or allowing it to be replaced, so we're passing that cost on to you.
By that cost, we wouldn't know what that cost is until later on.
You have a pretty good idea up front what it's going to be. You can estimate it.
CPI, something like that, just to project it out, but you're right.
Well, it's the cost of the potential reporting that has to be done, the sampling that has to
Sampling,
be done, the potential corrosion control study, yes.
So I guess the question then is for B, how do we want to decide to resolve these issues that we did not know about it? Because if not, it might hold up the project, or it might have someone come back and open up the parkway to finish their lines after we finish the project. So that's B. So that's what's before us now, is how do we want to proceed with that? It's unfortunate. We didn't know these things that we do now. And I understand that, the money we had for the potholing was not enough to do everything. And I think the intent was to sample throughout the community and see what the results were as an indicator.
and I understand the potholing thing, but I'm gonna kind of jump on with Fred here a little bit and be like, we should have done Main Street knowing that this construction project was gonna be going on. I mean, we were aware of the lead for last year or two as far as this was gonna be coming. The fact that we didn't pothole all of these residences on Main Street, I don't get. Again, he was polite and said that we had all these people, staff and everything else. I mean, we had a former longtime water superintendent, and I mean, a lot of that I would think would have been his responsibility. And again, if people didn't cooperate, how many of these people on Main Street turned in the surveys? And again, what we're gonna come down to is there's other people that don't have lead, they're not gonna wanna pay for it. I understand that we could be punished later on, but if anybody in this room thinks that there's not gonna be at least one person regardless that's gonna say no, that they don't want it done, they're gonna do the waiver, there's always gonna be one that's not going to.
So I get all that, and I agree with much of that. I think it just comes down to, what are we willing to do with Main Street? And then if we don't decide to do that, then we have to go through the notification process that's required to notify them we've identified lead line and start that new process while we work on C.
Yeah, the last thing I want to do is delay the project. I mean, we're finally making some good headway. We have traction. It's going ahead. I feel that we've let the community down by not doing our due diligence and our proper investigations. So, I mean, I see all these things online about how people are upset about the late fees and everything like that. This is gonna be another fee that the city's pushing onto somebody for our poor business practices. I mean, it should have been dealt with.
I wouldn't say it's the city's fault, right? I mean, it depends how you reported that. If you didn't report it correctly,
Well,
there's
if
nothing
you
we can
didn't
do about it.
report it correctly, that's one thing.
Or
but
you
if-
didn't
if
understand
it
what you
wasn't
were reporting.
reported, and then we didn't go do our due diligence and do an investigation, or didn't even
But you have to
attempt.
get in like all 50 homes of Main Street or whatever, how many ever homes are on
Yeah,
there.
and you're talking a few hours at each location, and
Yeah, but
and
some
you're
people
over
don't
and
even
done
want you in
with.
their house. You know, they don't
You-
have
you-
to obligate
You
themselves.
can
to
do
let
it
you.
on both sides of the B box. You pothole on both sides of the B boxes, back down to it, so. I've spoke my piece on this. I do see your point, Rich. I just think that because this is tied to a bigger project, a major project, one that we've never done to this caliber since I've been on, right? I mean, Latham isn't even close to this one. And it impacts the hospital more on this one, and the businesses and the city more on this one than Latham. And we messed up on Latham with the ditches, with that sort of thing. So we're gonna have to do our due
Denise
diligence. on the
says they
next one.
work. She came down here tonight and it was doing its job.
It was
Depends how you
flowing.
look at those ditches.
I think it is flowing because the pole in her front yard's leaning already, so it's starting to settle.
That's how it was designed. That's what I inherited.
But my personal opinion on this one, once again, is on this one, we eat the costs and then we figure out where we go with the next one. And I don't believe it's gonna set a precedence because it's gonna be tied to a specific scope. Can't talk tonight. And leave it at that.
But if we do it for a set of Main Street people, and let's say we go to a subdivision down, like he was talking about, other places, and we say, well, we did it for Main Street, but we're not gonna do it for you guys. And we can't really do that. I mean, we can't.
Guarantee you, Pleasant's gonna be the next one that you're already talking about ahead of time. And there's not many houses on Pleasant that have been, on East Pleasant, sorry, that have been built after 1986.
Yeah, I think though when
I'm trying to think, I
We
might
have
not
2
even think
years
of
for
one.
that,
I mean, when we talked at, originally there were 6, and now there's 40,
No, not 40.
20,
21.
21.
So I just,
There were a few different numbers that I was trying to add up there, doing maths. But
Well, we've
up to
identified,
20.
according to
21,
our,
yeah, because I said we tripled.
according to the street department superintendent, 21, I believe, have been identified.
And I believe that
Project's not
some of the
done.
residents have already been told the city's gonna pay for it, because that was conveyed to me by a resident already, so.
I don't know what they were told, it wasn't by me.
I think there are some that were told that because we believed at the beginning that that was the case.
That the 60,000 or 80 we allocated.
The
was covered.
$80,000 we had in the budget, we assumed we would take care of the ones that were there, but unfortunately, we found significantly more than that.
Okay, what'd you like to do, council?
Figure out a way where the people that have lead lines are either doing a waiver or they're paying for it.
I think you're almost right, because like I said, you can't do it for them and not do it for everybody in town. We don't have the money for everybody, so. We don't have the money to do on Main Street either, but
And again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe everybody that's had a house built after approximately 1986 are like, yeah, go ahead and use the tax dollars to do a $7,000 to $8,000 improvement on someone else's. I don't think so. I understand nobody's gonna have the money sitting around just to be able to do it, or most people wouldn't. I mean, money like that would be, for a lot of people, gonna be a used car. It'd be your complete furnace and HVAC replacement, you know, things like that. So,
Well, and of course, the biggest concern is the project too. I mean, we've got to move forward with that. They're saying next week they want to begin replacing those lines to the B boxes. And if we've disrupted them, then legally we need to replace them. Is that what you said, Steve?
Yeah, correct. They have to be replaced. Who replaces them, who pays for them is the question on the private side, but they have to be replaced in
you
a certain
can't-
period of time.
You can't sign a waiver saying you're not going to once you've disrupted it.
The homeowner can sign that
Okay.
waiver. They could.
Okay, so that'll be up for a vote at the next meeting right after this. We'll move on to item C. Item C is for the council to discuss the future lead line service replacement policy. So we need to have a policy in place about what Hanley is going forward. I believe the memo gave you some suggestions of what they would be, such as who would be responsible to pay on the private side, council's desire to come up with some kind of split of the cost, and then how you might want to finance that or charge the homeowner. So you were given a couple examples, the city of St. Charles, the city of Roselle, the city of Arlington Heights. We already discussed Carpentersville, and so we would need to further craft and identify a policy. The longer we take, the less time we have to notify our residents. So, discussion on that. Everyone read the memo? And I do agree it would be quite a burden on many of our citizens that have come up with that kind of money, or even the process to go get a home equity loan or some other process to pay for that. And I understand the other side of that is not everyone feels they should be responsible.
Yeah, and the other side of this too is, I mean, we've talked that we don't have the money, or it's been stated that we don't have the money. The only thing is, we will have to put the capital outlay for this work, and then we have the possibility of not recapturing that until potentially the home sale takes place, you know, and we'd have a lien on the property at that point and get the balance paid. So just because we're putting a payment plan in place and because there is a lien in place, doesn't mean you won't see it for 30 years.
If I may, Mayor. I mean, technically, we would always have the right to foreclose the lien. Not that we would want to do that, but you would have the right to try to recoup the funds prior to a sale or anything like that. So.
Which that
just-
would put that resident even in more harm's
Absolutely.
way. And
Yes.
make them distrust the city even more, and, you know, so.
Yes.
And ironically, D is the 50-50 split for our sidewalk program, where we intend to pay half the sidewalk for our residents instead of what we're discussing, making them pay all their lead line. So leaning it is an option. I don't think foreclosing is a friendly thing to do for anyone, which does just leave a lien on the house however long it's there. However, then when they sell it, though, they'd have to pay the lien off.
Yes, and statutory interest would accrue on that the city would also be entitled to receive.
I think when we originally looked at the 71 or 72 lines we had, we thought if we put $80,000 away for 10 years, we'd be able to mitigate all the lead lines. But that'll impact to our community, a little impact to our budget because we do it over a 10-year time frame. But if there's more, there's more. Okay, so thoughts from council about how you'd like to, or what content you'd like to see in a particular policy before we write a policy? This is what frustrates me in some of our meetings. We seem like we have a lot of blank on our agenda. We just don't get through it. We just sit here and we talk about it, nobody puts forward a proposal or an idea, and this is where we get like meeting after meeting. You know?
Is that what you want?
Well, I heard what you said. I want more input, so if we're gonna design a policy, it's gotta have everybody's input, whether it's a percentage or all or nothing. Then we can write the policy, and then we can wordsmith the policy and smooth it out.
My suggestion at this point in time would be 100%, but if you think it's being nice, I can even say a 50-50, but it's gotta be something, because again, I don't know what the percentage is of residences that are older than 1986 and probably don't have lead line, but I think a lot of those people are gonna be ticked off if we're using all of these tax dollars to pay for the private line, whether it's an unfunded mandate or whatever. It's gonna piss people off, period.
I don't disagree.
So
But as government, we're here to help.
I think it almost has to follow the same pathway that Rich said earlier, right? It was survey it, it was a waiver, right? And then it was make a pay with low interest loan or what reimbursement. But then there also should be something onto that cover the additional testing that needs to be performed by the city. So that was Carpentersville?
Correct.
So I think there has to be something of that if there's an additional cost or burden on our part because they don't want to conform to the new rules and regulations that the IEPA puts forth, then we're going to have those accounted for. Sorry, got a call coming in.
I thought you were being beamed up.
And then I think that should maybe go on the other one too, because we didn't talk about the costs of for the Carpenter, like the Carpenterville
Well, I mean,
expense.
it's a different solution to a problem, right? Maybe it is the right solution for us, that there's just an additional cost on those individuals. And it basically underwrites the cost of the testing, the sampling, the reporting by our staff, which, as we all agree, is a limited staff. And this, we don't know how many people will take the waiver. So we can add that to the list, so I put that on the policy list of items we'll draft into a policy.
I think what we're seeing, I mean, there was a report this morning on WSPY where Yorkville, for them to hook up to Lake Michigan water is going from 300 million to 400 million. Million. And they don't know exactly what their portion of it is. I think they're saying 150 million is going to be theirs or something of the total overall project. And we're seeing this all over, unfortunately. The cost of water is getting where it's incredibly expensive to produce, to be able to take care of, to monitor, and then we have these things on top of it. I mean, you know, we're not able to just,
It's a commodity.
It's a
Has a
commodity.
value,
I mean,
cost.
it's a revenue fund. I mean, these are not tax dollars that are coming in. Unfortunately, these are user fees for the water. I mean, it's one of those things where it's a revenue fund. We haven't necessarily treated it that way historically, but it is a revenue fund. And I certainly understand the council's concern of trying to, you know, if on a worst case scenario, there's 400 out of 2,700 services, that's 15% that this cost is, you know, would, it doesn't necessarily make sense to absorb that by the rest of the city. But at the same time, all of the items that are there, all of the treatment plant, the service lines, the mains, they're all part of it. It's not that, well, I'm not using that main, so that's not what I'm gonna pay for. It's a collective thing. Everybody has to be part of it in order to have that utility and have that service. We know our infrastructure is in trouble. I mean, we've got a lot of pipes that are bad. We've got a water treatment plant that we need to do. We have some significant investment that we need to make into this water service, or into this water operation. And this is just another thing that's complicating all of it. And I think part of it is that we have to have a better plan going forward as to how we're going to do this. But we've spent months arguing about late fees because people don't want to pay their bills. I mean, there's been something on Facebook this week where we're getting bashed that we're cavemen, because we charge a late fee. But ironically, the people who are doing it are people who are on payment plans already that we're trying to work with. And this is what's frustrating, is that no matter what we do, we're going to lose, because if we decide to pay for the lead service lines, we're not being fair to somebody. If we don't pay for it, we're putting a lot of people in a really difficult predicament. And that is the truth with unfunded mandates, is that it puts you as elected officials in a very difficult spot. And it's not fair, but fair isn't always equal either. And I think that that's something that sometimes we forget, that the right thing to do might be to pay for the homeowner's lines on this project, and then be able to go and look at that policy and say, this is what we have to do going forward. There's a price to pay now, but we have to do it this way in order to make it all work. And I think we have to be more collective in the way that we think about it, because it's not just, I'm sure somebody on Main Street is not thinking that, they're the lucky one right now with a lead service line, whether we pay for it or not. So I think it's got to be more of a collective look at what we provide. And, at this rate, and the reason I brought up Yorkville is what are their rates going to be in 10 years? I mean, it's going to be significant over the next 10 years to get to a point that they can actually do it. I think, some of the things that we need to do, it's going to be expensive right now, but these are the things that in 10 or 20 years could really, really set the city up to be a really great place to be, where water is affordable, if we can play our cards right and do the right things. But we've got a plan for it.
So here's the economics of your water bill. Whether you pay your water bill, you pay your water bill with late fees. It goes to our revenue. Our revenue offsets our expenses. The additional funds we move over to our reserve account, and we pay that against, for example, our water treatment plant, our long-term debt. Someone wants to know where their late fee goes, doesn't go over everything else, goes against our expenses. The surplus goes to our reserve fund, which pays our debt. We just entered into a 20-year debt to comply with our wastewater treatment plant with the Illinois EPA. We have a police department that has a bond on it, we pay that, and we'll probably soon have something else that we'll have to be paying on. So we do have to decommission our water wells, and that's going to be a cost too, that we'll have to use that reserve amount to pay that off. So we have to mitigate all those things. So that's where it goes. Okay, so I've got some items for the policy. Does anybody have anything else you'd like to see for a split or something else?
It's just not an easy decision.
I know it's
mean,
not, but
it's
we gotta
really
start
hard.
somewhere.
No answer.
You're
You know?
not alone. Every other community in the region is dealing with the same issue and having the same conversations. It's happening all over. That's, like Jeff said, unfunded mandate. It's being pushed down to you to make these difficult decisions. There's not a right or wrong decision. It's what you feel is in the best interest of your community. The arguments are very strong on both sides for how you push it. It just is. I don't envy you. I can help you understand the legal requirements as far as from the rule, what the IEPA requires, but who pays for it is absolutely on the community as a policy decision.
So I need this input to draft the policy, whether it's a good or bad policy, if it's policy. and we can smooth the policy and pass the policy. The policy has an effective date, so no matter what you decide tonight about Main Street, when you pass the policy, that's when the policy takes effect. It's like any other ordinance. We create a new ordinance, the ordinance takes effect when it's passed. Okay, so we'll draft this up, we'll get out there, but it's a starting point. We had to start somewhere. For me to just write a policy and not be in tune with what the council wants would just be a waste of time. So it comes back to myself and the staff and to the attorney. We'll figure out what's proper, and then it goes to the next step where you finish it, and then becomes what's legal, and then we can vote on a policy that becomes our lead line replacement policy. Okay? All right, anything else on the policy? Okay, then we'll move on to item D, which is 50/50 sidewalk program. Now, before we start the discussion, I'm gonna ask Mr. Dennison, who, so his engineering firm is the one that's helped us write some of our projects that go through our funding source, which is KKCOM, goes to CMAP. The reason that we have attempted to be successful is how those are scored. And in scoring those, there's an ADA process and the major project scope. So maybe you can talk a little bit about how we did some of our surveys and our inventory, and why we do some of those things, at least so the council understands why we moved away from the 50/50 program to a larger scope. And the intent was to become more compliant on the ADA side and scoring, maybe how that works.
I know this on a very broad basis. Again, my expertise is water, wastewater. Kurt is much more in tune with the sidewalk program. But I know the program, the process that's been implemented is to try to make it as objective as possible in identifying where the needs are, and also looking at it pragmatically, where you are looking at trying to maximize the dollars that you're spending on the program. So you want to, from a contractor perspective, they're going to be able to reduce their pricing if you're focusing on a particular area, not scattered all around town. So it's the ranking, how you do it, and then it's looking pragmatically at grouping an area and trying to get that all knocked out at one time.
So if you look at Main Street, you can see where they marked the sidewalk of replace the entire portion and leave part of it, right? That stretches our dollars on Main Street. That lets us get as much sidewalk as we can in there without having to replace every sidewalk, because not all of them are bad. They just need something connected, or they're not ADA compliant. So the scoring part's important, because when you go up against other communities and you have an ADA need, first of all, we got dinged on our ADA compliance at one time from the Attorney General's office. So I have a large, long-range plan. I don't know what that goes back, probably 10 years, that report came out. So we're chipping away at that, trying to make progress. You see it in our downtown, you see it in other places when we've done our sidewalk program. So we also use that when we submit those, that we're mitigating some of the issues and making further compliance with our ADA when we score. Our scoring goes up against other communities for funding. So the more we have a project that looks more appealing and remedies some of these issues, we seem to be better in some of our funding. So now, 50/50 program, that was on our agenda to talk. I was hoping Kurt would be here because that's actually his area of expertise.
It is.
within the
Apologies,
engineering
he
field.
had a prior engagement this evening, yep.
Yep, when we found out on Friday, he wasn't gonna be able to make it, so. It's on the agenda, you can talk about it. There's no allocation this year for it, so it'd simply be next year. You can set it to the side and come back to it later. But that's kind of my overview of how we scored our projects to be competitive.
My only comment for the 50/50 is I think we should have a list, even though we don't have money current for this year. We should have a list of just people that are willing to do the 50/50, and they know that money's not available right now, but at some point there probably will be. And then if they are still interested in that point, we contact them and let them know. But I think it's a good way to at least know that they're willing to put some of their own money in to improve their own property, even though it's a city property, sidewalk.
No, I agree with that, and Kurt will probably tell you if he's here that there's a whole sequence of pitching the sidewalk right and having it all sheeted the same way that we did when we do a large project.
I think you would have to have the contractor do all the work.
Right.
Correct. But yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense of having a list of people who are willing to pay for half of the work.
And it could be
yeah.
rich at the end of a given year if we do have excess funds, and we may go to that list, right?
And most of the time, it's a matter of, you know, the 50/50, it's not a true 50/50. We pay for the concrete, they pay for but like I said, it depends on what the cost of the two are at the time.
Right.
It used to always be where labor was the most expensive.
Do you as council members want to start the list by your ward?
I say that if a resident wants to participate in this, they shouldn't be calling us in the first place. They should be directing the calls to City Hall to document it, to track it the same way, because I might jot something down and forget to hand it in. I might put the name twice, I might transpose a address or something like that. I mean, I appreciate the fact that you want us to go talk to the residents and everything like that.
Sounds like your job.
It should be a portal thing where you put it in and a ticket and it comes, spits it out. I mean, or put in sidewalks at sandwich.il.us, create an alias, put your name, your address, and what you want to have done, and document it.
We'll ask the building staff
Well,
if the new
you know,
permitting process.
The
might have
whole,
a
the whole thing
opportunity.
here is, that was something that I talked with Adam about, is get the 5 people that you're talking about and let's look at it. Because my neighbor has a sidewalk square that's broken in half, it's pitched down, now it's settling. That's one sidewalk square. You don't have to do an assessment on it. It's straight in line, it's got to match the 2 next to it. That'd be a perfect candidate for this situation. She's
But
trying to sell her place
Yeah,
and,
but one square like that should already be in our street department program as emergency replacement dollars. So that might be something you just need to turn in.
well,
Okay, so we will talk to the staff to
I'm
see
not
if we have
taking
a.
all the numbers down, sir.
We will talk to our staff to see what their
Or just put a
recommendation
tab
is.
on the website.
Yeah,
You know,
I think we're
sidewalk
gonna have to do
replacement
something
program.
like that, because even the discussion of the 50/50 program, I mean, we're getting a ton of calls about, oh, I want to get my sidewalk replaced. But they didn't hear the 50/50 part. They just want to make sure
Correct.
that it's on there. And that's the
Correct.
problem, is that, you know, then we've got a,
If there's
it's
something on
fine,
the,
it's
if
just
there's
a
something
matter
on the website, would you be willing to pay everything but material, yes or no? As soon as they say no, then they're excluded.
And you
Oh,
could give them an example of how much it is a square yard. It's not gonna be able to hold us to it, but they could at least project it out themselves.
well, I do wish Kurt was here, because one of the discussions that I had with him is that in a lot of cases, because of economy of scale, the reason we got away from the 50/50 program, and my understanding is that, you know, we could have 3 sections of, 3 houses out of 10 that we had a 50/50 program for, but because we're skipping around, we could have done the whole block for what our portion was of the 50/50. And that's
But
what
the
we were
problem with
trying to
that,
do.
and this is the thing I would argue every single day, the problem with that is, and we did that around Woodbury and everything.
Yes, we did.
We did entire sections of the sidewalk when there's a perfectly good sidewalk across the street. And so now we have areas of town that have sidewalk on both sides, yet you have areas of town that don't even have sidewalk on one side. So I will argue that every single time. I understand that you get more bang for your buck, but in essence, you're not connecting the dots, because there's still areas of town that don't have sidewalk.
And that goes back to my statement from before, fair is not always equal. I mean, I'm not sure why we put them on both sides if they were already there. I don't know the details of that, but I would expect it had to do with its proximity to the school, but maybe I'm incorrect in that. But the bottom line is that that's what I was told initially, was that the cost is it's a lot more costly to jump around than it is to do a large section.
So we'll come up with a submit your interest process.
Sure.
Okay, EV vehicle charging stations. Don, you wanna come up and give us an update of where we're at with that? I just saw the lightning out the window. It's all right. That's lit up the whole front there, so
I didn't have dinner.
that was within like a mile and a half.
Same, Jeff.
All right,
Are you on?
yeah, Mayor, yep, there it is. ComEd has come back and offered to pay for 3 years of all the maintenance, and in addition to all of that, we would keep all the revenue. Question came up today about, is it a well-lit area, right? That's what you asked. We can work with ComEd on that, on how it's positioned, and if it needs additional lights. We worked, Jeff and I reviewed the units that they offer, the brands, we looked at all the specs, they're all basically the same. The one we chose has the least amount of maintenance costs going forward after that. So that's where we're at. I mean, it's all the answers, all the concerns, I think, have been answered as far as costs.
I did speak with Mr. Frazier, the owner of the antique store, and after we had a discussion, I think his response back to me is that they believe it could benefit their business. Good, right? Nobody knows, but he did think that that might complement what they do and their clientele. Questions for Don?
Yes. Do we know what the cost, like if, after the 3 years service plan is over with, what the cost of like potentially a service call would be? Is it, $150 to get somebody out, or $350 or $1,200?
Well, there's a maintenance agreement, so that would be covered under the we're doing a maintenance agreement for the unit.
Okay.
We're doing a maintenance agreement for the software, like all
The
software.
maintenance agreement, but past the 3 years.
Well, we would just sign up again. We would just sign another agreement.
Okay.
That was, I think, what was it, Jeff, like $740 or something?
I think it was total that much,
Yeah, for the year, for both of those agreements.
Okay, other questions? We'll be voting on tonight so we can be done with it and move on one way or the other.
Well, and at that time, we'll have a good idea what the revenue is as well. That's part of what is nice about ComEd covering this at this point, is that we get to try it, see what the revenue is, and see if, make sure that we can cover the costs, which we fully anticipate being able to do.
Yeah.
So,
One question on that real quick. Like, if it doesn't work out, do they just get taken out, or?
We still on the hook for them?
Yeah.
We'll have to talk to ComEd, see what that looks like.
'Cause,
It's probably their unit, they paid for it. They installed it, they did all the work. I would assume that it's their unit.
Okay, just another.
Yeah, but that's
question.
something we'll discuss when we talk about the lighting. I'll say, what if this doesn't pan out?
And if I may, I do recall that the maintenance agreements and the service, they aren't required, so it's just beneficial. So
Yeah.
in reality, we could just, I think, never update the system or anything like that. And I'm
Right.
assuming eventually they would want to come get it because it's not probably serving its purpose. But I don't think, there's no requirement that we actually enter into these agreements. It's just going to make the program and the product work better to have the maintenance.
But I get your point. Is it like a video poker machine? It doesn't make the revenue, they just come take it out of the business? We'll find out, we'll ask a little bit more, but I assume there's a process. I assume it's not feasible for us and it's not feasible for them. They'll just come and move the unit, take it someplace else.
We could, I suppose, go, what do you want to say, call it time and material with no agreement. If something goes wrong, then we'll pay whatever it costs. And I think on the software side, I think you always want those updates. And
For
that
security
linkage,
purposes.
Yeah, and the linkage to the revenue.
Okay.
Sounds good, thank you.
Questions, comments? Then we'll move on to F. That is the agreement. Should be up for a vote the next meeting for the foundation and the craft fair. Okay, anything else on that? Then we'll move on to, we have no new business unless there's other by council. We have no announcements, audience comments. Motion to adjourn the committee of the whole.
Yes.
Robinson, is there a second by Chun? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Passed.